Welcome back, my rogues. Today's question is, what's the creepiest or most unexplainable thing you've ever seen that you haven't shared anywhere? Serious. Hope you enjoy, and check me out on Instagram. I've gone out of my way to read reviews about some of those places. Typically they change a few things, but revert to old habits and still suck. When I was about 9 in the 1970s, I was playing football in the street. A bus came along, so I jumped up on the pavement. As it passed, I noticed my aunt and she smiled and waved to me. When the bus had gone, I carried on playing. I went home several hours later to find my aunt had died the previous evening. Rescued a blue tick-coon hound that had bad anxiety when we left, so he had to be crated. Went to the grocery store with wife and 2 young kids and left the dog in the crate. When we got back, the dog was out of the crate, but the crate was completely closed and latched. There was no apparent way it could have happened. We problem-solved it for the entire day and couldn't figure out how he did it. Called him Blue Deanie after that. His unmatched escape skills continue though. He could open doors. No fence could hold him in. The dog simply climbed fences. We ended up rehoming him for his own safety. He actually wound up as a farm dog, which I'm sure was his best home. My father was my grandmother's favorite child out of 6, partially because he was by far the youngest out of 10 children. She nicknamed him Little Mountain, as the last character in his Chinese name was or Mountain. I remember going to her funeral when she passed, and we were burning paper money for her to use in the afterlife, a Taiwanese Chinese tradition. I vividly remember watching my dad picking up a scrap of half-burnt money and making a sort of strangled noise. It was burnt in such a way that it resembled the character, even down to the middle prong being longer than the other 2. I'm seriously not religious or superstitious, but that was probably the closest I ever got to believing in the supernatural, or at least ghosts. My father died when I was 15. In my freshman year of college, me and my roommate in the dorms were somewhat close, but really had only been known each other for a month when the creepy thing happened. IHADNT told her much about my childhood, but she knew that my father had passed. One day she woke me up and asked me, "Did your father used to call you insert silly childhood nickname here?" IHADNT heard that name since I was 6 or 7. I definitely never told her that he used to call me that, as it was a repressed memory that IHADNT thought about in a long time. Anyway, as it turned out, she had a dream that my father had come to her and asked her to take care of me, calling me by this silly childhood nickname. It was always difficult for me that my father never saw me graduate high school or start college, but I guess he did, from wherever he is now. It's been almost 10 years and I still don't have anything that's somewhat close to an explanation what happened. Family bestie and me were sleeping over at her grandma's house and enjoying the newly renovated attic as it was supposed to become her little teenager apartment. All new furniture with a huge comfy couch and nice clean boards screwed to the wall, all in white. Pink. Sleepover went just like you would imagine it, with 2 15-year-old girls painting nails, watching DVDs and talking about the hottest gossip at school. It was already like 3 a.m. when we decided to go get some sleep and left the room to sleep in the bed next door. Only a few minutes later we heard a little scratching sound followed by a loud bang, clearly coming from the room we just left. One of the boards that was screwed to the wall was lying on the floor, almost 4 meters away from where it was supposed to be. Not like screw broken it fell. No, solid 4 meters away from that wall. Almost 2 centimeters deep hole in the ground where the board was laying. The holes in the wall looked like something grabbed that board and pulled it straight out, ripping the wood and concrete it was drilled to. Still getting goosebumps remembering it. I got recalled into work and was driving at about 3 a.m. I was in a very rural area in western Washington. As I come around a curve, I see a woman in a nightgown on the side of the road looking up at a steep embankment, just standing there staring away from the road. There are no homes nearby, not for miles. I call 911 and pull over about a minute up the road, not knowing what to think. Deputy showed up, couldn't locate anyone, and was as dumbfounded as I was. I never make it in time to answer these and have pretty much kept this story to myself. I remember telling one person who told me, "Don't repeat that. Don't mess with whatever that was," so I didn't. I guess read at your own risk. When I was 10, I went with my parents to this campground so they could visit their friends. They had a son who I got along with, same age. Sometimes, however, if there was other kids around, the son would try and pick on me to impress them. Me and the son went fishing, and right as we're about to leave, another kid comes and joins us, and the son immediately starts picking on me. Not wanting to be stuck on a boat and teased, I decided to leave and walk back to the campground by myself. I didn't want to go straight back to my parents because they'd ask why I wasn't with the son, and I didn't want to get into it. So I just walked on this U-shaped road. In the center of the U are campers and on the other side is woods with a lake around it. At the very center of the U is a park. Perfect. I think I'll just sit on the swings until I think enough time has passed to go back as I'm on the swings. I notice a path directly across from me. I get up and start walking along this dirt path. There are reeds on either side of me and I have my hands stretched out as I walk dead center of this path. My hands can just barely touch these reeds unless I move closer to one side. I walk for about 10 minutes maybe and I get to this pond. Crystal clear water and I have this urge to drink it. It looks so refreshing. I kneel down and suddenly the hairs on the back of my neck go straight up. It was like I snapped back into myself. What am I doing? Why am I about to drink pond water? Why did I walk down this path? I start feeling really uneasy so I turn around and start walking the same way I came. Let me clarify. There was only one path. Straight. I made no turns. I didn't walk around this pond. I simply walked to the end of the path, got freaked out about something and turned around. Suddenly, all types of bugs were now around. I kept walking and I noticed the dirt path is getting more and more narrow. The reeds and tall grass are now at my arms and there's a constant buzzing feeling in my ears from these bugs. The path gets so narrow that I have to walk sideways to avoid the reeds. I yell out help and I hear a voice ask if I'm okay. I reply I'm lost and a woman says just walk straight honey, I see you. I see nothing, it's just tall grass and reeds. I walk a few feet and see the road. I'm scratched from head to toe and there's a woman by the playground asking what happened. She takes a Kleenex out of her pocketbook and starts wiping some of the scratches and I tell her what happened. I look behind me and see no path. I'm at the same park. I'm in front of the swing I was just on. The woman looks at me and tells me that I shouldn't even think about it and to just forget it. Happened because I'm fine now. But she really emphasized not to talk about it. I've always been on the fence about it. I'm sure there was one path in and one path out. The bugs could have steered me off course. Maybe me being paranoid, or something more sinister that nearly trapped me for good. I used to live in the middle of nowhere. The town had less than 200 people in it. I used to work through the night in one of the metro areas and it was about a 40-minute drive with about 15 of it on a county road. I used to think I would see shit in the fields, coyotes, deer, etc. all the time. Never thought twice. Well, one morning I was on my way home about 3 a.m. and we had a little bridge to cross right before we got to our road. As I'm closing in on crossing the bridge I can see something pearl white just hanging out in the middle of the road. Thought it was probably a swan and it would move. As I got closer I realized that swans are not that big. I was in a ref 150 and it was at eye level with me. When its wings opened up it literally covered both lanes of traffic. I swerved to miss it, but hit some of the wing. I slammed on my brakes and turned around. Whatever it was 100 gone without a trace. Never saw it again. If it was a bird, that's the fucking biggest bird I have ever seen. Oh, and I did not alive by anything considered to be a large body of water. Edit. The only thing I can describe it as a humongous crane. But the only area where cranes live close to that old house was about 5 hours away. My dorm hall had some weird shit happen, but one of the weirdest was that I went to the bathroom to wash my face and brush my teeth. The sink was right next to the entrance and as I washed my face, I saw and heard the door open and noticed a figure move to the end of the stalls. I figured a girl had just come in to use the bathroom. I dry off my face and begin brushing my teeth but realized I didn't hear anyone else. I checked each stall and no one was in there. I quickly grabbed my stuff and knocked out. When I was 15 I started to read Pet Sematary. So I am at my home, my parents work the night shift so I am alone and around 2 a.m. the morning I am well into the book. It's a real page turner. In the book moment cat comes back from cemetery I hear a noise outside my window. I live on the entrance floor. Open my curtain and a black cat perched on the ledge looking inside. I knocked the window to scare the cat and the fucker hissed at me. Shat myself. The fucker stayed there for a good couple of minutes but then again this was in Turkey and cats won't give a fuck since they know we won't hurt them. A couple of summers ago myself and some friends from university went to visit one of our friends' houses, since we were going to a festival nearby and had been offered to stay over. Long story short, her family are extremely rich with a huge, old mansion in the English countryside. As with any home this big we had a bit of a tour around and were shown our guest rooms. Her dad began to tell us that the place was haunted in a joking tone, and mentioned that when they first moved their dresser had been left behind in one of the guest rooms, the one I was staying in. This was one of the only things left behind, and they'd found a lock of hair in one of the drawers. I'm not really a believer of ghost stories, so at the time I just shrugged it off as a joke. Although it's still a bit weird admittedly. That night I got into bed and began to notice that the air felt strangely cold around me. but there wasn't a particular breeze. The rest of the house had been a perfectly normal temperature just before this too. As I slept I kept having the most surreal dreams. Nothing like when I normally sleep. I'd constantly awake and feeling cold. It was like when you're very unwell and find yourself somewhat hallucinating in bed while you dip in and out of sleep. The other weird thing was that this was the middle of August and in the UK we don't typically have air conditioning, not unless you're in an office or something. I woke up the next morning and on one side of the room there are two hanging rails for clothes. The guest room is normally used for storing spare clothes. Several of the clothing items were on the floor. The hangers had completely come off the railings, and I could have sworn these were all hung up the night before. Like I say, I'm not really a believer of paranormal stuff, but that night has spooked me ever since. I've never experienced anything quite as strange. I do wonder if her dad's stories of it being haunted had planted the placebo in my head, though. I was working in a retail store in a pretty sketchy area. There was this lady who was obviously a heavy drug user or ex-drug user. She must have been in her 50s or 60s. She was notorious on my block for being a crazy, but she'd visit me all the time and told me she thought I was cute. It was really bizarre cause she looked like a crackhead, but she'd act like a teenage girl around me. I tried to be nice to her cause she was known for being volatile. Anyway, on Christmas Eve she packed an entire Christmas dinner which she told me was all home-cooked Guyanese food in a cologne set. As she was leaving she just squats down on the floor and throws her hand up and starts cackling. Yes, cackling which faded to a giggle. Never saw her again. Running through a large field in the middle of a nice neighborhood on Halloween night. Got gassed sprinting halfway and reached out to hold on to a tiny tree. Felt what I can only describe as claws like bugles on your fingertips wrap around my hand. Knocked the FK out and ran back to my group of friends. There were no leads because it was fall, so I still have no clue what it was. Mine's pretty minor. I was awake one summer night with my window wide open to try to cool my room, and I heard this gigantic droning sound appear out of nowhere and remain for a few minutes. Sounded like it was coming from just outside my window above the road. It was one of the loudest sounds I've ever heard. Didn't sound like a helicopter. There wasn't the chopper blades in the air. And once it had stayed for a few minutes, it faded away, like it was going up into the air. Never heard anything like it since. I was probably 18 years old, and was driving at night to see a friend. This man kind of jumped in front of the car to make me stop. He honestly looked crazy. I slowed down the car to almost stop and he moved to talk to me, I think through the window. But I just drove off once he got out of the way. I was so creeped out. I never told anyone because I felt guilty that I didn't help him. When I was a kid 1011 years old I had awoke in the middle of an autumn night and looked out my window. There, just 2,030 feet away from me were two spherical balls of light dancing around each other. They seemed to float in midair. I assured myself I was awake, and I was. They bounced around for a while, then disappeared slowly, like a light dimming. It was fucking weird. You know that black cloud that enters a room in The Grudge? I saw that for real one time, following a person who entered the apartment I was in. I freaked out and almost started hyperventilating, but of course, I couldn't tell the people around me what I was seeing, as I knew no one else was seeing it. I just darted out of there and sat in the elevator for a while on my way out. Never had shared it before. I laid down to sleep one night. It always took me forever to fall asleep, as I have to breathe deeply for an hour to relax enough to drop off. A few minutes after I got into bed, the door to my room flew open with a bang. I heard something quite large and noisy stomp around the open area of my room. Even felt a breeze that ruffled my hair, and then my door slammed shut and all was quiet. I was paralyzed with fear for a long time. Never got up to investigate due to sheer terror. No one else was home. I occasionally talk about how my daughter does, or at least did, spooky unexplainable things. Sometimes I think I'm just imaging it. Anyways, she started crying uncontrollably when I told her March break, that's what they call the week off. School in the spring here in Canada was being extended by 2 weeks at the start of this COVID thing. It didn't make a lot of sense. Kids are supposed to want to be off school, and we didn't tell her the reasons either at that point. Just that it was going to be 3 weeks, not 1 week, and yeah, except why are you upset? Something crazy like an hour later she said she just knew and that she wasn't going to be going back to school for at least another year and it wouldn't be the same and that she'd miss her friends. So in my grandparents' old house we had swings and my cousin loved them so much. One night my mum went outside and saw my cousin there looking kind of sad but shrugged it off and went back inside. The second she steps foot inside she sees the same cousin getting out of the bathroom. She asked her, How she came in so fast and my cousin didn't know what she was talking about. My mum went outside. There wasn't anybody on the swing, but it was swinging at wasn't windy and they were the only people in the house. A friend and I were parked in the countryside and I'm getting stoned. It wasn't uncommon for people our age to do this. Head into the country, find a safe spot and get out and party a bit. We found a safe spot, got out and lit up. We were basically surrounded by woods and it was about 2 a.m. and pitch black. Out of nowhere, we hear birds almost like a crow's call going nuts. So loud, and very close, several different birds doing the same thing, ca caw. That was shortly followed by a sound of some sort of big cat, probably a cougar. Its roar was deafening and very close. We got out of there at max speed, both jumping into the car. Without saying a word, after some research, we come to find out the state we're in, Illinois, has no populations of any mountain lions or cougars. That was about 15 years ago and I still think about it. Like how close we were to danger, etc. Hell, I still have no clue what it was. But those birds are the true bros. I don't know if I have an overactive imagination. I don't know if it's because I only ever have terrifying nightmares on the regular. I don't know if I just overexcited myself. A few nights ago I woke up, but definitely not completely, and saw a large hunched over horned demon-esque figure in the corner. Just standing there, raptor-looking arms as crouched as his body. A year ago I woke up in the night to being touched on the face. Only could open my eyes and it was eerily out of a movie scene. Groggy and unable to speak. It was a three-fingered alien, retracting his hand from very close to my face, making clicking noises. Had a buddy with him. Don't think I was chosen though. Not technically seen, but heard when I was about 15. I willingly stayed home alone to look after my pets while my family went on a cruise. One night I heard the distinct sound of the old kitchen window open. Freaked out and hid in the cupboard. Was so afraid that I called the police. They showed up soon after. One stayed with me and the other went around outside to check the window. Window was closed. No footprints. No marks on the window or anything. To this day I'm puzzled by this and I'm still confident that I really did hear that window open. A decade ago a girlfriend, let's call her M, moved in with me, but she gave me a warning. There's a man that follows me. He's not evil or anything like that, but he doesn't like men. That should have been the time I knocked the F out of my own home, but I was in love and just accepted her wild statement. Fast forward a few months later. Home alone. M just left for work and I'm showering. I hear the bathroom door open and hear the dresser behind it. I look to my right and see a shadow through the curtain. I jokingly say out loud, "Oh, you're back for some bonus shower time." As I open the curtain, nobody is there, still home alone. A few days later I come home from work and hang my keys on the hook like I always do and walk away. An hour goes by when I notice my keys rocking back and forth on the hook. Minutes turn into hours as my keys keep rocking. Finally M comes home and looks at me, looks at the keys and asks how long. I just stared at her as she stops the keys as if it was as common as of not delivering on a locked safe. The two worst ones happened close together. Again I'm in the bathroom, on my knees as I scrub the tub. I feel as though someone is next to me, breathing on me. As I jerk away a hand grabs my leg and yanks me towards the bathroom door. And then nothing. That night I'm out with a group of friends. I'm telling them these same stories and at the end the light above us flickers and shuts off. As we all look up to the light my chair gets picked up and thrown into the table. I turn around to scold the jackass behind me but nobody was there. Everyone just stared at me with shocked looks on their faces because they just witnessed the man. The finale. It's late and M is downstairs in bed. I'm turning off the lights as I hear our laundry room door close and footsteps leading to the bedroom. My brain is thinking M is awake, so I go to the bedroom. I open the door to the sound of her softly snoring. I turn around and am hit with the loveliest smell I have ever experienced. It's the smell of my late Nana's home. Her perfume is everywhere. After that moment the man was gone. It's like she came into the home and removed his presence. I can't explain it. All I know is that I haven't smelled that scent in well over 20 years and I doubt I'll ever smell it again. TLDR, I had a ghost that haunted me and my late Nana made it disappear. I swear, in being haunted, my mom has this big stand thing where WW put hand creams and face masks. And it's about an inch away from the counter closest to the toilet. Sometimes, when I use the toilet, it falls over onto me. I have one of those lamps with like 5 heads and the shades are all different colors in my room for extra light. Sometimes, when I'm sleeping, I'll wake up to a loud bang. I open my eyes, and my lamp is lying on the floor. My little brother one has a toy piano, where as long as you just touch the keys, it plays. Often, I wake up to that piano playing. My siblings are at daycare and my mom is at work by the time I wake up. So I'm alone. I always turn it off. None of my siblings play with it, and it only happens when I'm alone. I have a white heat lamp for my geckos, but we haven't used on in a few weeks. Every time we screw in a brand new bulb and turn the lamp on, the bulb pops and sometimes shatters. We've checked 1,000 times, and we're using the right bulb wattage for the right heat lamp. We even bought a new lamp, and the bulb still breaks. If anyone has any explanation for any of these, please tell me. I'm scared to use the toilet, and I'm scared to fall asleep. When I was a kid, I was playing in our kitchen when I saw a huge dark figure walk past the kitchen. And down the hallway leading to the bedrooms, I walked to our back patio and saw the rest of my family watching TV. The patio is on the opposite side of the house from the hallway. I walked to the hallway and started looking for who it could have been, but never found anyone. Still have no idea who or what it could have been, but it's always creeped me out thinking about it. It happened on the bus ride to school, and as I did every day, I was staring out the window, but then my eyes stared directly into the eyes of a man who was wearing a black suit with black sunglasses. And in front of him another man stood facing away from me. They were both standing in front of a white van. I then looked back at them as I moved past him and saw some indescribable creature that was tied up in rope sitting in the back of the open van. Both events below happened during dark nights, while the event above happened in daylight. I have also seen a humanoid-like creature with glowing white eyes walking around my house and living in an isolated rural area surrounded by trees doesn't help, and twice I have heard an extremely loud voice saying help or hello right beside my head, and then intense feelings of anxiety and paranoia after I look in the direction of the voice. More recently, I came into knowledge that when I was a toddler, I told my mother when I was older I was going to tie her up and kill her. Also, as a toddler, I created a collage of bones, dead bodies, autopsies and other horrific items. When I was a toddler, I was being cared for by another person. When we saw a mother and her baby, I said to the person, "We don't kill the babies." I am a forest ranger and hunt averagely. I live in the Netherlands and was on a hunting trip in Germany. Now I'm a Germanic pagan, which means that I believe in the old gods and even some of the fearful creatures that come out at night for them to hunt. This was at day 3 of what was supposed to be a hunting trip off a week. Things were going well. I had seen a lot of game in the past 3 days. I was tracking a deer since day 2 by that time. Anyway, it was night and I had set up a tent in the woods. This would normally be illegal, but I had an agreement with the owner of the forest since it was a relative of mine. I was sleeping when I would suddenly be woken up by a weird sound in the woods. I originally thought it was an animal, but I had no knowledge of one making a sound like this. It was about 2 in the morning and I thought nothing much of it, so I tried going back to sleep with my knife a little closer than before. I failed in going back to sleep because the weird sound had me in its grasp. There was something about it that was so interesting to me. It was kind of a low burling sound like you would hear from a male deer when it's mating season. The problem was that deer wasn't mating season. The sound also had a strange high-pitched tone and a sort of growl at the same time to it that a deer would not been able to make. Interested to what it was out there, I grabbed my rifle and knife and went to take a look outside. The sound was back again. I now walked in the distance of the sound, now also with a healthy bit of fear of the unknown. I got closer and closer to the sound when I suddenly stepped into water. There was a pool in front of me. A bit irritated that I got my socks wet over my own imagination, I decided that it was in my head and that I should go back to my tent. But then I saw a glimpse of something at the edge of the water at the other side of the pool. It was something that looked like a mix between a big black wolf-like creature and a kind of deer. Since I thought to have seen that it had antlers, I couldn't see it clearly because it was almost pitch black, but I went back straight away, not even shooting at it. I couldn't sleep the entire night thinking about what I had heard and seen. I started thinking about the creatures that I had read of and thought it maybe was a Raufhocker, a type of shapeshifter in German mythology. But at the end of the night I came by the conclusion that I should continue hunting. I shot a deer 2 days later and went home, not forgetting what I had seen in the night since it gave me a good fright. But mostly because there are way more dangerous creatures than that in the woods if you should believe in the folklore or mythology. Once rounded the corner at night in the woods on a go-kart and saw a massive creature standing upright by the trees. I remember it having a really long tail, which is what strikes me as odd. Was driving through the rural south with my only one car in front of us, the Volvo. I remember it had that old beach color, winding road in Appalachian Mountains, the kind where if you don't slow down, off the edge of the mountain you go, there's a sharp turn. We expect it because we've done this route so many times before. The car in front of us slams into it at an angle, his left nose looking like it's going to be fucked up. I see pieces and fragments of it falling off. Instead of stopping, he keeps driving. Weird. 10 minutes later we get off the last mountain and onto a decently major highway. There are plenty of exits. Car still doesn't get off. We start to pass car using the left passing lane. And lo and behold, the car is spotless, no sign of the damage, not even a scratch. We had both literally seen pieces flying off his car and there is absolutely no sign of damage. Also, immediately after we pass him, the guy quickly gets off the highway. He was wearing what looked like an Indiana Jones type hat and you couldn't see his face. But he noticeably hunked down after seeing us notice him. It was the strangest thing. It's been years and we still talk about it. Creepy things happen in those mountains. I was reading the Appalachians used to be connected to the Scottish Highlands millions of years ago. Makes sense to me. Had also met a no-nonsense oil tanker guy who swore he had seen a Sasquatch in West Virginia. Of course it was West Virginia. In my mother's house, the basement light would turn on while we were away, and even if it was turned off before we left it was somehow back on when we got back. Once I went downstairs and was like, "Hey Mr. Ghostman, this is not good for the bills, could you chill it with the lights?" "Yes, I know it's dark down here, okay thanks." Lights stayed off. Here is a creepy weird story. During a road trip from NJ to NC, my friend and I decided we were hungry and went looking for food in a town in Maryland. I don't remember the name of the town, but it felt very strange as soon as we pulled onto the main road, as there didn't seem to be any people out and about. It was the middle of the day, but no one was walking around. There weren't any restaurant food options other than a pizza place, so we pulled up and parked in front of the pizza place. It seemed like everyone in the town must have gone to that pizza place. When we parked the car, everyone in the restaurant turned and looked at our car through the big glass windows. At the same time, they stared at us. We stared at them. It felt so weird that I said, "I don't want to go in there." My friend just nodded at me wide-eyed, and we drove to another town for lunch. Why was seemingly the whole town in that pizza place? What was with the staring? I'm almost a little sorry we didn't go in to find out, but at the same time not sorry at all. As teenagers, my friends and I were walking back through a graveyard one night. We were walking towards the top gate along a side path. As we neared the top, we noticed what appeared to be an elderly woman in rags walking really slow towards the top. Our first thought was not to distress her by walking out, but we all commented on her dress. Imagine 18th century style. She stopped on the path and turned running back towards THR bottom. Her movement was so weird. It was like a young woman. No homeless in the area and none of us were paranormal believers. To this day we still bring it up. The weirdest thing was her style and her movement. My dad died from unexpected heart attack and he was on the hospital for 6 days before he died. The 6th day before they call us to tell us that he's gone, I see him in my dreams. I see him say goodbye to me and close the door of our house forever. That happened 6 years before and I don't care if it's paranormal or not. It makes me sad both ways. Exactly a year after my closest friend killed herself, I stumbled into her boyfriend on a bridge at midnight, in a city of 12 million. It weirded me out like nothing else. He also seemed shaken. P.S. The place had nothing to do with her death. When I was younger I remember playing out in the street and then I was walking on the sidewalk and I saw a man's figure walk beside me. The figure vanished behind the car and when I went behind the car it was gone. I don't really believe in ghosts or the paranormal, but it really freaked me out at the time. I was in a flight and I saw a UFO. I never told it to anyone because no one will believe me and will say that it was in my mind. I know what I saw. This happened 5 years ago. While at commute, I saw someone without a face. I mean literally his face was showing decomposed bits of skin and showing a lot of bone from the skull. He was standing in line in a train station while I was on a public transport. I stared at him from a distance and he doesn't seem to exist to everybody else. Like nobody even notices him. Him not just being mean. I know if someone gets disfigured you're not supposed to bring it up or laugh and point like it was a circus freak. No, this was something else. Like he was a ghost that only I saw. It was so out of left field and this never happened to me again. I know it wasn't just a dream or hallucination because the Texan stuff I wrote on my school notes was still there. The thing I can't really explain due to not understanding it, is when I'd done a past life meditation and ended up revisiting what I assumed to be one of my past lives. It was like watching memories in my head and feeling all the emotions of the situations. I even had a somewhat guide person that didn't really exist guiding me during different memories. I ended up seeing my wedding day and my wife. I remember thinking that I'm in love with this woman, even though I have never met her in my life. Lol, so it was feelings from before. Kinda freaks me out to think about it. I also seen my death from before. The emotions I felt on these 2 days, which I assumed to have been my best and worst ever, was so vivid and way more intense than any real feeling I have felt before. Then the creepiest thing was when I woke up and had sleep paralysis, and seen something as black as space sitting on my bed. I tried to scream for help from my parents in the next room. And the thing shuddered almost like its body went, oh shit, he sees me. And then it grabbed my back and started saying some demonic language that basically made me feel extremely calm, as if I was in the presence of God, or an angel, and then I was able to move and it was gone. I assumed that was my guardian angel and I seen him by accident. Sorry for my English. One day in a rural town in my country, Peru, I was next to a restaurant and I saw a dwarf come out with horns and a fork in his hand. When he saw me, he stood still and after a while ran to a nearby bathroom. Curiously, in that same bathroom they raped a girl. You know these moments, when you're at a crowded place and try to find someone. You call them on their phone and still it's hard to find them. Now imagine being in Venice for the first time. In summer, that place was crowded AF. My dad got separated from us for some reason. We were like, damn, he has no phone, nothing. We didn't see him for a while. We will never find him. Should we call police or something? And just in that moment he magically appeared behind us and was like, what's up? Still don't know how he just popped up behind us. I was walking to a job with a colleague when I suddenly became very dizzy. It passed very quickly and I heard my colleague say, whoa, I just had a massive head rush. Never worked out what would cause us both to have that feeling at the same time. I've also never shared this with anyone. I've told this story on here before. I used to live in really rural Texas and was driving down a FM farm to Market Road during some very thick fog. I was in an old pickup truck, and was going maybe 2,030 miles per hour because I couldn't see very far ahead. Super glad I was. As I came around a turn I saw through the fog this big hulking figure lurching across the road. I slowed down, pulled up near it to pass and saw what was the biggest hog I've ever seen in my life. A good 400 pounds certainly. It was dead, probably destroyed whatever car hit it and dragging it to the side of the road. An absolutely massive white shaggy dog. Y'all, this dog. I was in a pickup truck, and this dog made eye contact with me, lifted its head, and stared me level in the eye for what felt like an eternity. I stopped my truck and stared. I was so caught off guard. After probably a few seconds, felt like forever, it put its head back down, grabbed the chunk of hog and continued making its way off the road. To break it down, this dog was smart enough to move the animal it wanted to eat. Large and strong enough to drag a 400-ish pound hog across pavement. And tall enough to look me in the eye in a pickup. I will never forget those eyes. It had mud-stained white fur, a big block head, and a long wolfy tail. It looked almost like a Pyrenees common around there, but with a big St. Bernard-shaped head and double the normal size. Big glowing yellow eyes. I have no idea if it was some freak mutant farm dog, a spirit, a wolf, or what, but I'd like to never see it again. At our retreat I freaked the whole class out when I said I liked the pretty nun with the long hair, and pointed the window. Everyone said no one was there, but 3 of my classmates saw a shadow from where I was pointing. Later that night we heard chains being dragged in the hallways and crying in the basement. Every time my family moves to a new house I always see a strange human figure. It's like Peter Pan's shadow, but it look like it has no clothes, no hair, and it's just a blank back figure. Look at this guy, Richie Jerk 6200 last Instagram story. Extremely eerie. You won't be fooled and no out here lol, but yeah, his story though. The kid is emotional, asking why is he fighting just to live where he is from in Chicago. Then he posts his location and 1 hour later fell dead. His rivals finally were able to catch him and followed him. IP kid, this is creepy but I guess explainable. Creepy person. I lived in a halfway house with my father because I had nowhere else to live. Every space of the house except kitchen and bathroom were turned into bedding areas for the residents who just came from jail or rehab for substance abuse. Some people were living zombies, others suicidal or violent. One guy who never spoke to anyone approaches my room one night and offers a ride to Vegas. Like IDK who this dude is, and he wants to suddenly drive me to Vegas. At the time I was into Vegas and actually wanted to go out there to see friends. IDK how he knew, but I turned it down. He never spoke to me again. Serial killer vibes. Once me, my dad and my brother were outside to look at the night sky since there were so many stars visible. That night, suddenly my brother shouted satellite and we both looked up and it did look like a satellite moving in orbit as you normally see sometimes. The thing is that the so-called satellite suddenly speed up. Its flight path curved in an instant and just accelerated away in the weirdest way possible. We were 3 people that night and we all describe it the same way still this day. That had to be something out of the ordinary. I remember when I was 15 or 16 I was in my bedroom at night and I heard someone distinctly whisper my name 3 or 4 times. I was kind of frozen for a second, then I looked out the window because it sounded like it was coming from outside, but nothing was out there. I asked my parents if they called me and they did not. So I DK if I was just hearing things, but I'm still confused about it, lol. I love these threads and will never get tired of them. When I was little I went to Florida for a vacation. I was playing in the ocean and all of a sudden I see a great creature that looked like a really small baby dolphin swimming around my legs. Needless to say, I jumped out of the water and ran for the shore, and I didn't go in the water the rest of the day. I still remember my heart beating really fast and my shallow breathing. Well, I'm still yet to completely confirm it, but if I try, it seems I can literally sense what move an AI-generated opponent on a video game is going to make. Next, it sounds weird, but I'm actually not joking. I swear to GD, I'm not lying about this. It's completely true. In January our school went on a class trip. The certain place we were going was about 4 hours away from our city. It was about 12 and we were on the highway. It was pitch black outside and I was trying to sleep, as it would be an hour before we got back. I was looking out the window into that darkness when I saw two bright lights about level to my eyeline. I blinked a couple times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating, and sure enough the two bright lights were still there. I quickly woke up my friend who was right beside me. She said she couldn't see anything. I looked back the final time and the two bright lights were gone. It was weird because there wasn't a single road out where I was looking. Just flat prairie. If anyone has any answers I'd love to hear them. I usually go to school really early in the morning because I live far away and I take the bus to avoid traffic. I was at the corner walking to school and everything went silent. No cars passing, nothing. I looked around and saw a man with something in his hand that looked like a machete. So I ran into the school, straight into my classroom. Nothing like that has ever happened to me again. My husband believes in ghosts or energies of dead people. He is South American Catholic and I do not. I have made fun of him many times for this. A few years ago we were staying in a log cabin way out in the woods, and in the middle of the night, I half woke up because I heard footsteps going down the stairs then fade away. I assumed my husband had gone to the bathroom, but when I rolled over he was there. It was an open loft bedroom to the stairs so you could hear everything. And they were very clearly footsteps on the stairs. Plus there was no plumbing near the stairs, hard to describe the layout for it to be any kind of water knocking around in pipes or anything. I wasn't too concerned because I was tired and not really processing, but the next morning my husband asked me why I went downstairs to use the bathroom last night when we had one upstairs. That's when we figured out he heard the footsteps too but assumed it was me. I still don't believe in ghosts, but it was either ghosts or somebody came in the cabin to look at this in the middle of the night, so that was creepy for me. I saw a white floating orb in my room when I was 7. I thought it was the Tooth Fairy. Now I think maybe it was an angel or a spirit.
Hope you liked this video. Stay frosty my rebels.